Now, what I'm asking
not Virginia, but I want to know if you think if it was a power
where
play.
does this go? Because you want to talk about power plays. I would love to know, Hasan Piker on your side of the aisle said today that as a result of this ruling, if a peaceful revolution is not possible, then violent revolution is inevitable. So
Okay,
do you agree with Hasan Piker?
I'm not Hasan Piker. Hasan Piker can...
But do you agree with that?
Hasan Piker can speak for himself.
What does he mean by that?
I don't know. You can ask him. I'm not Hasan Piker. I'm
Brian Tyler Cohen appears on CNN stepping directly into a heated political exchange, positioned as a challenge to MAGA talking points and what some describe as far-right disinformation. Across the table is Caroline Sunshine, a former Trump campaign aide, setting up a clear ideological clash right from the start. Now, this debate isn't just being watched, it's being replayed, clipped, and analyzed on shows like The Alex Michelson Show. And as those moments circulate, everyone is adding their own interpretation of what really happened and what it all means.
Now to the latest on the redistricting battle in the U.S. The Virginia State Supreme Court has struck down the Democrats' redistricting plan that voters approved a few weeks ago. The plan could have helped Democrats win as many as 4 more House seats, but the state's high court ruled that the process of creating the referendum violated the state constitution. State Democrats say they intend to appeal the case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which has given states wide latitude when it comes to redistricting. President Trump took to social media to celebrate the decision, calling it a huge win for the Republican Party and America in Virginia. Meantime, Alabama lawmakers have approved a plan to hold new primaries if the court allowed the state to use different congressional districts in this year's elections. Let's bring in Brian Tyler Cohen, host of the No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen podcast, and Caroline Sunshine, former communications aide for President Trump's 2024 presidential campaign. Welcome back to both of you. Brian, let's start with you. You have been on this redistricting train for years, telling Democrats that you should redistrict. A lot of times they wouldn't listen to you. Now it seems like they finally are and realizing the risk of this. What's your reaction to what happened in Virginia and what Democrats should do now?
Look, I think that the reaction to what happened in Virginia is that it is the perfect encapsulation of the asymmetry between the two sides, where we have independent redistricting commissions in all of the Democratic weapons. And, even when you go to the voters, even when 3 million people show up to vote in a referendum that based on some small technicality, all of those voters' voices are going to be silenced. At the same time that we have Republicans in Florida, in Texas, in North Carolina, possibly South Carolina, Tennessee, all who've just decided by fiat that they're going to redraw their states' maps. I mean, basically ushering in elected legislatures, but redrawing the state maps without a single person weighing in on this stuff, basically ushering in Jim Crow 2.0 in the South. I wouldn't be surprised if we get to a point where we see no black representation in any of these southern states. And so I think it's a wake-up call to Democrats across the country. If you are a Democrat in New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Illinois, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, this is the time to start fighting back and recognize the urgency of this moment right here. Because Republicans don't believe that Democrats have a right to exist as a party. And so if we don't start fighting back, and if we don't stop unilaterally disarming, we're basically going to good government ourselves into obscurity.
Caroline, what do you think of this? Is it Jim Crow 2.0?
Well, so you're opposed to this because you think that this dilutes people's political power unfairly? Is that why you're opposed to this?
I think that it dilutes the ability of people in certain jurisdictions to be able to vote for their representatives. Nashville has been cracked into multiple districts. Memphis has been cracked in multiple districts. And so there's no way that those people who live in those jurisdictions can vote for their representatives because the Republicans have purposefully gerrymandered those states to dilute their voting power.
So you're against diluting voting power?
I'm against gerrymandering.
Okay, so do you support then illegal immigrants being allowed to vote in elections?
Illegal immigrants don't vote in federal elections.
Well, illegal immigrants are who Democrats want to vote in federal elections.
But it doesn't matter if they want. It doesn't matter what anybody wants.
If you are against diluting political power for anybody, you should not want illegal immigrants to vote in American elections because we can't dilute the political power of Americans.
But this isn't a discussion about that. And illegal immigrants are not allowed to vote in federal elections. What about this move of what the Supreme Court did and what Republicans are doing right now when it comes to redistricting? A lot of this started with President Trump telling Texas to get him more congressional districts.
Well, I think checks and balances played out here. I mean, the Virginia Supreme Court said this can't happen in 2026, but it could happen in 2028. So I'm not sure what the big deal is here. This went through the democratic process and the Supreme Court, the judge struck it down saying the language in the referendum was flagrantly misleading. And he's not saying it can't happen. He's just saying it can't happen in 2026 because it's unconstitutional. And he's correct because that is a flagrant power play by Democrats to try to reshape the midterms in 2026.
So if you think
now,
that's
my question for you
that's a power play,
is
was
what comes next?
Was it a power play when Donald Trump demanded the same thing in Texas? Said that he was entitled to 5 seats in Texas. Was that a power play?
Texas isn't Virginia. The states are sovereign, and according to the Constitution, the 10th Amendment says federalism. Each state has the right to conduct it differently.
I'm asking you if it
played
was a power
out
play.
how it played out in Texas because Texas isn't Virginia.
I understand
now,
that Texas is not Virginia, but I want to know if you think if it was a power play.
Where does this go? Because you want to talk about power plays. I would love to know. Hasan Piker on your side of the aisle said today that as a result of this ruling, if a peaceful revolution is not possible, then violent revolution is inevitable. So do you agree with Hasan Piker?
I'm not Hasan Piker. Hasan Piker can.
But do you agree with that?
Hasan Piker can speak for himself.
What does he mean by that?
I don't know. You can ask him. I'm not Hasan Piker. I'm
But
Brian.
do you agree with that? Do you condemn that?
Call Hasan Piker
Where
and
do you want
ask.
to see this go?
What I'm here. I don't care what Hasan Piker says. I'm not Hasan Piker.
I don't think Brian's pushing for a violent revolution either.
Are you or no? Just to be clear, because where does this go now that the Supreme Court in Virginia has ruled
Here's where it
this
goes.
is not
It goes to me calling on every Democratic elected official, either in the legislature or the governor's office, in Democratic states across the country, and demanding that they redraw maps to fight fire with fire and actually counteract what Republicans have done in a raft of different states across the country and what they continue to do in southern states across the country in response to the Voting Rights Act being gutted.
Do you think that there should be a national ban on gerrymandering to try to stop this whole thing around the country?
I'm not opposed to it, but I also believe that the Constitution says, 10th Amendment, what is not outlined here is left to the states. And I think states have a right to decide their own process. And that's what I'm arguing with you is the process played out here in Virginia. It was put on the ballot on a referendum directly to the voters. It barely passed. The language was extremely misleading. There was an appeal. It then went to the state Supreme Court. What's the problem here? Checks and balances played out.
The argument escalates as the focus shifts to whether Democratic votes are actually being respected after the fact. One side insists the process didn't play out, arguing that people did vote, but the outcome was later overturned through the courts, described here as a right-leaning Supreme Court intervention. From this perspective, it's not just about one case in Virginia, but a broader pattern. Ballot initiatives being reversed, voter-approved measures stalled, and decisions effectively undone after public votes. Examples are brought in to sharpen the point, from local bans like fracking referendums being struck down to cases where voter-approved funding, including money earmarked for causes like supporting homeless veterans, is allegedly not being released or implemented as intended. And the underlying concern becomes blunt. If votes can be cast, won, and then reversed or blocked after the fact, then what does democratic participation actually mean in practice?
You support a national ban.
100%. And in fact, when the Democrats put that forward, a national ban on gerrymandering in 2021, the Freedom to Vote Act, every single Democrat voted for it. Every single Republican voted against it.
Do you think the United States Supreme Court, which has supported Texas's right to do this and has supported California's right to do this, will support Virginia's right to do redistricting? You think they might overturn this?
No. I think that the Supreme Court has proven itself to be an arm of the Republican Party, if nothing else. And we have seen numerous instances where, whether it's this U.S. Supreme Court, where you had a bunch of justices beat their chest about the importance of precedent and the Voting Rights Act, which is, that precedent has been reaffirmed over and over and over again for the past 60 years, just like Roe was precedent that was reaffirmed over and over again. The Supreme Court stands for its own adherence to the Republican Party.
You think the Supreme Court might step in?
I don't think they're going to hear this. I don't see why they would. Again, the people of Virginia spoke. And what's interesting is when this referendum was put on the ballot, let's be very clear, it disenfranchised the rights and the voices, if we're talking about who got disenfranchised with a referendum, of rural Virginians. Yeah. This referendum transferred power from majority of the state, which is rural Virginians, and consolidated it among the swamp, which is people who work in D.C. and live in Virginia. But I didn't hear you speaking up then.
And by the way,
I
would concede that when you have a gerrymandered map, certain people are disenfranchised, which is why this whole thing was sparked off after Republicans first went after Texas. I didn't agree with it when it happened in Texas, but what I don't want to see is unilateral disarmament. I think gerrymandering is a scourge all around. But if you really care about disenfranchisement, then you'll care about it when it happens right off the bat. You'll care about it when it happens in Texas. You'll care about it when all of a sudden Memphis is cracked into multiple districts, Nashville is cracked into multiple districts, and those people have no voting power because that's 100% Republican.
And that is true in California now, that Republicans are being disenfranchised by Prop 50.
But the difference
is the districts are not. It's not fair to Republican voters, and the idea of like a 52-0 map here is not fair. Just like it's not fair what we're seeing in Tennessee and other places where there's going to be no Democratic representation. That's bad for democracy.
Correct. It's terrible for democracy.
Right.
The difference is there's only one party that actually supports a nationwide ban on gerrymandering, and that's the Democrats.
Violent revolution, to be clear, is also bad for democracy.
And neither Brian nor myself are endorsing violent revolution. Just to be clear, always against political violence. I've said that repeatedly. quickly, here in Los Angeles, there's a very interesting race happening right now for mayor. Karen Bass, the incumbent, who has been embattled and does not have very high approval ratings right now, is being challenged by Spencer Pratt, a reality star known for The Hills, who's a Republican, who gets a lot of attention on social media, had a debate this week, got a lot of attention for it. What do you make of what Spencer is doing right now? He's running ads that he's getting a lot of attention for. Certainly a lot of Republicans around the country who don't live in Los Angeles and can't vote for him are endorsing him. What do you think of his chances to actually win in a deeply blue city?
I think Spencer Pratt could be the next mayor of Los Angeles, and I'll tell you why. The last time a reality television star who was politically incorrect ran for office, he ended up all the way at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And Spencer Pratt is reminding me of the saying, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. He has all the makings.
The commentary turns sharply critical of a growing political trend where celebrity status is treated as political qualification. It argues that figures like Caroline Sunshine are endorsing a broader shift that normalizes fame over experience in leadership, a trend linked to Donald Trump's political rise. From this perspective, politics has become uniquely unusual. Unlike any other profession, it increasingly rewards outsiders with no governing background, even for roles with serious real-world consequences. And the warning is direct. When major cities are led by inexperienced celebrity candidates, the stakes aren't symbolic. They affect millions of lives, raising concerns about whether politics is becoming more about attention than actual competence.
He has the charisma of Mamdani, AOC, Trump. He has that outsider, anti-establishment energy, and he is good at harnessing attention. He is running, tactically speaking, a very nimble, agile, smart campaign. I can tell that campaign is not being governed by committee. My guess is it's a very small team of 5 to 6 people who, just like Trump in 2016, are able to move a lot faster than bloated political consultant type campaigns. And Spencer, people are saying they don't like his politically correct comments. So in the debate the other night, people said he was offensive maybe when he was suggesting that Nithya Raman go ask people who are homeless under the freeway for treatment. They were going to get stabbed in the neck, and people were really offended by that. Well, guess what? In Venice, California today, we had a man get his arm sliced off with a samurai sword. So Spencer Pratt, it looks like, is way more in touch with reality than the rest of the candidates on that stage.
Quickly, Brian, thoughts on Spencer?
What could possibly go wrong with a longtime reality star who speaks bluntly, knows how to game the media, and decides that he wants to be a politician? Look, I think that would
what
actually...
What do you have to lose, Brian?
I think that would actually carry... I think that would actually
lose?
carry more weight if Donald Trump's approval rating wasn't what it is right now, and if he wasn't basically exposed as a con artist for promising to be this populist champion, and instead, prices are higher for everybody, healthcare's cut, food assistance has been cut, and we're spending God knows how many billions of dollars per day on a war in the Middle East that he promised would never happen.
Well, in the next few weeks, we will be talking to all the leading candidates for LA mayor, including Spencer Pratt here on The Story Is. But for now, thanks to Caroline and Brian, we could keep going all night, but at some point we got to stop. Thank you guys both
The
for being
closing
here.
commentary doubles down on the central warning. Leadership in this framing is being handed to figures seen as inexperienced celebrities rather than seasoned public servants. It argues that when political systems elevate outsiders without governance experience, the risk isn't theoretical. It scales with the size of the responsibility, from small towns to major cities, and even national leadership. And the final takeaway is a call for experience over spectacle, urging viewers to decide whether modern politics is prioritizing competence or simply visibility and fame. Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video.